Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Heat Seekers Show. We got a banger tonight, but by that I mean we are going to be doing some crazy stuff tonight. We're going to be doing mock drafting, and it's going to be a fun time. But I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by RotoHeat.com. Make sure you go to RotoHeat.com to get all the great content your eyes and ears and all that can take in. With the season coming up, we got a lot of great content, so make sure you jump over there. And if you're liking what you see here on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit the notification icon. With that being said, we've got an amazing guest tonight. We've got Cody Woodman, not Corey Sully. Cody
I know.
Schneid. He is an awesome content creator. Find him over on Twitter. He also has a YouTube channel. Go over there, subscribe, jump on in. He's got some amazing content. My friend Cody, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking some football here with a fellow Canadian. So let's get after it. I love it.
It is going to be fun. I've got 2/3 of the Heart Foundation with me. This is going to be a blast. All right. With that being said, our boy Patrick, shout out to you as always. We love that
Absolutely.
you handle our mocks. You are the man. We are going to have fun with it tonight. So we're doing a 1 QB mock draft, a startup. It's going to be interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but we are hoping to give you some insights because this is the time of year where redrafts are going to be going. This is the time of the year where guys get bored and are ready to start new leagues. I literally joined a dynasty league a weekend ago because guys got tired of waiting for the season to start. So, we're here to help tonight. We're going to try to have some fun with it. And with that being said, it's going quick. So we got Christian McCaffrey at the 1, Dalvin Cook at the 2, Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, eh? What do you guys think about Jonathan Taylor going that early? Cody, what do you make of something like that?
I mean, in a dynasty startup, I don't mind it at all. Obviously, you want to find, for me, especially with your first round pick, you definitely want to look for continuity with the team, coaching staff, offensive line, that kind of thing. And I think you got it with Jonathan Taylor. There's one small thing to be concerned about with the college touches for Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty like this. So, but I mean, realistically, running back shelf lives are fairly, short anyways. But, with the value, I've heard guys that are, ready to die on the hill of JT as RB1 this year. So, they're taking that as a bargain there, I suppose.
Even with Mack and Hines and all these other running backs, I don't know, that'd be a little scary. What are you thinking, Sully?
I'm not too worried about Marlon Mack. I think the injury he sustained last year is pretty devastating and tough to come back from, especially at the running back position. But your point on Hines and Wilkins and probably an increase in the passing game in Indianapolis is a little bit of cause for concern. That said, in my rankings, that's where I have Taylor. I have him at 4. So I'd be okay taking him there. I wouldn't take him any higher than that, though. Yeah,
if I'm Frank Reich and the offensive coordinator, if I'm calling plays, I'm not taking touches away from Jonathan Taylor and giving them to Marlon Mack personally. Obviously, Nyheim Hines is going to have a role, but if I'm just not giving the ball to Marlon Mack over Jonathan Taylor at any point throughout the game, basically. So I'm not concerned with Marlon Mack, and as long as everything remains the same with Nyheim Hines, then there you go.
And I do love that Sully is still with me on the Saquon bandwagon. I will probably die on that bandwagon, and I hope he gets healthy and returns to form. But that could be a big swing and miss if he can't return to form. What do you make of Saquon as a round 1 high end RB1? Cody?
Yeah, I think you're basically all in on that ideology right there. So for me, not personally, it's not worth the risk for me. I do know what Saquon can be, and I'm sure he can get back to that health. But in a dynasty league like this, and a 12-teamer, I think that you can get some other depth later at the running back position, especially towards the end of the draft where I'm at, and Brad, you're picking 12th. So you can stack guys there. I mean, I don't know. That's how I see it. I'm not taking that risk personally. I'm probably going to be avoiding him just because there's a lot of risers right now, like Jonathan Taylor. So
I take it as a bargain. I still have Barkley ranked at 2 in my startup 1 QB rankings. You know, I take a look at a guy like Dalvin Cook, who tore his ACL in year 1. Then he had some hamstring injury issues in year 2. And now here we are, right? Like these are things that happen to running backs. You know, Saquon finished as RB12 in his second season when he probably shouldn't even have played 5 or 6 of the games that he played in after that high ankle sprain. And then he tears his ACL last year. So I get it. I totally understand why there's a cause for concern. But anytime I can get that value in the first round, like he's almost mid-first round, I like it a lot. And I think that offense is better. They did a little bit of work to improve that offensive line through the draft. So I think the Giants will be a bit better of a team. Their offensive coordinator still concerns me, but I'll take Saquon Barkley at 5 every time I get the chance.
Well, and I thought that was a really interesting comment over on Facebook. And I do apologize, all our Facebook friends. StreamYard doesn't like to put names for you guys. But they said that confidence in running backs is as low as I've seen it in a few years. What do you think about something like that? Do you guys feel like, and I'll start with you, Cody, do you feel like the confidence is dropping in all these running backs?
I mean, I feel like it is, and there's a lot of people out there pushing the zero running back narrative. I actually completely disagree with that completely. I think that they're more valuable than ever, especially when, like Sully just said with Saquon, if you see a guy that you see him as a bargain, then absolutely pull the trigger there. Don't wait. You know, like I did just say that you can stack running backs toward the end of the draft, so I guess it depends on where you pick. And again, with Dynasty, that continuity, but I personally think that they're more valuable than ever right now, if I'm being honest. So especially if you can get that top tier, especially again in a 1 quarterback league, if you can get that set it and forget it running back, that always translate into, you know, playoffs, championships, that kind of a thing.
It's funny though, if you look at the 7 running backs that came off the board first here, McCaffrey's coming back from injury. Dalvin's always an injury concern. Kamara, new quarterback, new system, nobody knows. Jonathan Taylor, was it 1 year and a soft schedule down the stretch, or is he the real deal? Then Barkley, then Akers, who's unproven as well. Chubb, who's coming back off injury, and you know, he's got a shared backfield. It's pretty interesting how, you know, I agree with the Facebook user. You normally didn't have these concerns. You know, usually the first 5 picks were slam dunk and off you went. There's still a ton of talent left here that also has a ton of question marks behind it. So it's an interesting season for sure.
Yeah, there's not too many like this, except for with the exception of Christian McCaffrey. Even for Dalvin Cook, a lot of years there's, you know, the top 3 guys are set in stone, and those are going to be the top 3 picks. This year it can go any which way, and you know you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm not going to say anybody's wrong. Basically anywhere you take the guy that you like, and like we were talking pre-show with all the information that's out there, just take the guy that you like and be ready to die on that hill and have your fantasy, you know, season kind of, you know, ride or die with you.
Totally agree.
And I feel like the zero RB, like that, I feel like that's just a waste of words, you know, because you really never can go truly zero RB. I mean, it really needs to be the hyphenated, you know, zero RB for the first 4 rounds or something like that. Like zero RB doesn't make any sense because most leagues, running backs are very important. Oh, and you're up too, Cody. I didn't.
Yeah, I'm taking a peek.
You know, so for me, it's always you take your guys because in the end of it, and I've said this on countless shows over the years, if you're happy with your roster at the end of the day, I don't care what other people think. Like if you are pleased with the way that your roster's built, great. Because in the end, you're the one paying for yourself to play. Now, if I look at your roster and don't like it, then I'm happy because you're paying me to play. I mean, like, okay, so what? But it doesn't matter in the end. So
yeah, that's
they're running back, whatever.
Yeah, that's the new you know term, the new word that people like to throw around. But yeah, like you said, you're paying for the league, and realistically, if guys are taking guys that you deem as, you know, a reach, then that opens up doors for you. So you realistically, you should be happy with that. Let guys make mistakes. If you see them as mistakes, let them be mistakes, and, you know, live and die on your hill. So that's how I look at it personally.
Absolutely. And so our boy Connor took Derrick Henry, or Otto took Derrick Henry, but with all the touches and all the wear and tear, are you guys starting to get a little nervous about the Derrick Henry hype or the Derrick Henry being this early of a running back? Sully, are you a guy that's on board with Henry, or are you looking to get rid of him?
So Derrick Henry rushed for 2,027 yards last year. He became the 8th running back in NFL history to run for over 2,000 yards in a single season. The previous 7, the following season, at best, the best one of them all, Barry Sanders, had a 35% decrease in rushing yards. They all had their lowest yards per carry of their career the following season, and 5 of the 7 of them missed time due to injury. Yes, I'm concerned about Derrick Henry, and unless I'm a lock contender, I'm selling him, and he went about where I thought he should go.
Yeah, I think it depends on how your team structure looks and
Totally.
where you can afford to lose, where you're picking in rookie drafts, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, absolutely. I don't quite think that if he runs for 2,000 yards again, back-to-back seasons, he's pretty much automatically one of the best running backs to ever play the game. That would be insanity. Not that he couldn't do it. I mean, the dude is an absolute beast. Yeah. I don't really recall off the top of my head another running back like that with size and speed. Jerome Bettis obviously had that size, but he wasn't running, nearly as like Derrick Henry busts off 75-yard touchdowns, multiple times in the season. And that's very, very, very impressive at his stature. So,
And Mr. Sullivan, you were absolutely right. Barry Sanders was the best of them.
He's my favorite running back of all time, and it hurts me to say that as a Vikings fan. It's probably because I watched him run for 200-plus yards so many times against us.
Oh, man. Being in the building watching him just do that, I mean, it was a sight to see. It was some of the best times as a Lions fan, but, that's what happens when you've had
there's only
21 years of trash. So.
There's only 4 of them to choose from, so it can't be that
right?
hard.
So I to end the first round, I went Zeke, which isn't really terribly surprising as a first round running back. I mean, when looking at what was there, I like DeAndre Swift, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I like Dobbins, I like some of these guys, but I know what Zeke can be. These other guys need to prove a little bit more to me, especially in the systems that they're in. So give me what I know over what I'm not entirely sure, but I think I know. And then Justin Jefferson is just. As much as I don't like the Vikings as a Lions guy, I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's an ascending talent. I think there's still room for him to grow based on the team and his quality of talent. So I took a stab at him. He's really not wide receiver 2, honestly. But in my mind, this is a one quarterback, and I'm thinking more of a dynasty purpose. Even in redraft, I mean, he's still going to be a wide receiver 1 this year. So if somebody did it in redraft, I wouldn't hate it either. But there's plenty of other talented wide receivers still on the board, which some of them went.
Boom. There they go.
What are you looking at here as we ended the first and started the second, Mr. Sullivan? How do you feel about how the draft's rolling?
Well, I like the DK Metcalf selection that Cody made at what is he? What are you at? 10, 11, 9? I'll just keep saying numbers till I get it right. I like that pick. I like the way the first round ended. And Brad, I think that you've started this off. If I had to pick a team so far, and we're only early on, I like what you've done here early. Zeke was arguably the 3rd running back last season and was RB3 when Dak went down and before his offensive line fell apart. It seems like all those pieces are back in place this year. And Zeke seemed to just stop caring about the game of football after all those things and fumbling and playing silly football. So I like what he did there. Justin Jefferson, I really like him. I don't really like him this year, but long-term, I really like him. I think the Vikings go back to running and, pounding the rock this year. But, and then these running backs, these second-year running backs are just gold right now, right? Like you look at where we're at here, you've got Akers, Gibson, Edwards-Helaire, Dobbins, and Swift all gone early into the second round. Speaks to the depth of that running back class. So, and then the wide receivers after it, I don't argue with any of them. I love them all. So I think that's could have left one for me, but that's good.
Yeah, I think Zeke is one of those names that I'm looking at. Like, I'll let other people make the mistake and not pick him. Like you said, I know what he is and can be. Like I said earlier, everyone likes the new. Everybody wants the new running backs, second-year running backs, that kind of a thing. But you forget about what guys have done and have shown you that they absolutely can do. So there's no real need to overthink it, which everybody in everybody in fantasy football does, including myself. But, when you're sitting there at 12 and Ezekiel Elliott's there, pretty no-brainer in my opinion. So that's a great pick.
Kind of everything went wrong for him last year, and I think he was RB9 in PPR scoring. So I think we're a little hard on Zeke.
Well, the interesting thing here, the name that hasn't been drawn, DeAndre Hopkins is getting just ignored as we get through the first couple rounds. Do you think because he's been around for so long, people are starting to assume he's going to hit a wall here soon? Or why would people be ignoring, arguably wide receiver 1 in fantasy?
I think people would think that, he's got to fall off at some point. He's nearing 30. I'm not one of those believers whatsoever. I still think Nuke is absolutely one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the game. And I think the biggest concern is the rushing of Kyler Murray Kyler Murray going off script, and scrambling around, getting first downs, taking away from the passing game. I think people are reading a little bit too much into that, considering, it's still a Cliff Kingsbury offense. He still rolls out 4 wide receivers more than anyone else in the game. So I think, again, people might be overthinking that a little bit. Just, take what you know, and that he's going to get roughly 160 targets.
Well, and the only thing that I have concerns about is nothing to do with DeAndre Hopkins. Like, DeAndre Hopkins is a beast. I'm interested to see how the running game helps open up the pass, because I think they got worse at running back. Kenyon Drake was their best running back. He is now gone. They brought in James Conner, who is talented but can't stay healthy. Like, I arguably, my hottest take that I've had all offseason is I think Kyler Murray is going to be their leading rusher and passer this year. And that's not a super hot take, but he was almost their leading rusher last year. I think he was only like 150 yards behind Kenyon Drake last year. It's like, that's my worry is, do they wear out Kyler? Do they run too much and that starts to eat into somebody's targets? I don't think it's DeAndre Hopkins, but it's, how does this offense keep going and keep running through Kyler without him slowing down more than anything? Not DeAndre, but, more Murray.
Yeah.
And Facebook saying age cliff is coming. I love him, but can't trade him anywhere. I'm getting offers of a 2020 second.
Then you keep him. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the fact that he only had 6 touchdowns last year for a receiver of that caliber has a lot to do with a bit of the decline as well. Kyler ran for 11 touchdowns last year. I know it's the offseason. I know it's coach speak time, but when players themselves come out and say, I want to run less, I take them at their word. Kyler did get banged up towards the end of the year, and he struggled down the stretch because of it. So I think he's going to throw the football more this year. He's added some weapons. I don't know if AJ Green really does much of anything, but I do like Rondale Moore, and I do like Christian Kirk in that offense still. Plus, he has backs that can catch the football. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Arizona to be good. They upgraded the offensive line a little bit. I think they added, I can't remember who it is, but they got a new center. They did a bit of work there. So I still think Hopkins is an elite talent, and the elite talents at wide receiver tend to play into their 30s in this game. You look at Roddy White, you look at, Jerry Rice is ridiculous, but you look at some of the true elite Terrell Owens and guys like that, the age in which they played to, he's got tons of tread on the tire, in my opinion, still.
Yeah. And Kyler did get hurt towards the end of last season. And, it's no secret that pretty much every coach, cringes a little bit when their quarterback takes off. It's
totally
nerve-wracking. Every fan, gets a little concerned, right? So, it's not sustainable long-term, I don't think, unless you're, a body like Cam Newton or Josh Allen, something like that. Kyler Murray is not that stature. He's super quick and a little water bug, but you can't take those hits. You just can't.
Holy tight end, Brad.
I thought you were drafting everybody's team with the Kyle Pitts there at the third round.
I love Kyle Pitts, but I'm not taking him there in a startup. That's a little early for me.
Connor was gonna do what I was gonna do. I was gonna go after Josh Allen here. He's my other favorite, QB1 that I'd be willing to. I don't normally draft quarterback in a 1 QB before 7, 8, 9, 10, things like that. But Allen and Mahomes are two guys that, man, if you get them, you can sit on them, for easily the next 5 to 7 years and feel good that your QB1 is there. So, Josh, I love that somebody, Connor, I love that Connor went and grabbed Josh Allen there.
Connor's got a nice looking team.
Everything that we just talked about with Kyler, I'm absolutely thinking I'm going to pull the trigger here, because when I think there's quite a cliff at quarterback after probably Lamar Jackson. And if you're in a league, which a lot are, that only reward 4 points for a passing touchdown, but still get 6 for the rushing, it's just, you got to get one of those guys that can just compile points for you. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here and finish out my.
That's a great point. And I actually have Kyler at QB2 and Allen at 3, and I know Brad's going to fight me now, but I just think that both of those quarterbacks have such immense upside because what they do with their legs, to your point. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Man, and that's tough, because McLaurin and Josh Allen were the two I was looking at, and and this is where you get to the point where, like, okay, now you're starting to, do I go with a guy like Lamar, who I don't know that he'll ever continue to develop his accuracy. I mean, I think we know what Lamar is. He kind of is where he's at, but that's still really nice for fantasy purposes. But, a guy that I love here that I probably will draft if he isn't taken, I think is capped by his team because his head coach is insane. And this is the point in the draft where you're like, okay, what do? You see guys like Michael Thomas still on the board who, shouldn't be quarterback dependent and should still be a really quality talent. You've got Aaron Jones, but with all the concern in Green Bay, do you take the shot? Because no matter what, a guy like Aaron Jones is probably going to get his touches still and should be able to beat those stacked boxes. If Jordan Love is the guy and they lean on the run more, Aaron Jones should be able to beat that. This is where you start getting to the point where, like, okay, what are you trying to build with your roster? Do you go young for a long-term success, or are you trying to take a couple dart throws here on guys that are talented, but, oh, good, I can take them. So I'm going to take Josh Jacobs here because John Gruden is crazy, but I love Josh Jacobs.
Oh,
so
I thought you were going wide receiver there. I thought you had a wide receiver in your mind. Another crazy coach.
It is. Well, there are a lot of crazy coaches, but and then I'll turn around and go Lamar Jackson here just because just to grab a quarterback. But there's probably 5 quarterbacks that I think are worth getting in the top, 6-ish rounds in a 1 QB format. And Lamar's, I think he is what he is. But Cody, what's your take on a guy like Lamar and then the situation in Vegas? Like, those are two different, but what's your take on both those?
So with Lamar, I absolutely love Lamar Jackson. I think he is a fantastic quarterback. Obviously, you don't win the MVP in the NFL, without being a very good player and deserving it. So my big concern with the Ravens in general, and realistically with Lamar Jackson at the end of the day, is Greg Roman. I'm just, this is a big year for that offense and for Greg Roman. If it does not, if they do not succeed as a team, realistically, when you have the pieces, you have nowhere else to look. You have to look at the coaches and you have to make a change. And I definitely do not think that John Harbaugh is the problem. And there has been some struggles with the offense. So I think you have to look at Greg Roman and you have to think about it if he is the guy. So that, and then the Raiders are a bit of a hot mess, in my opinion. They make me extremely nervous at every position. I'm not super excited to be drafting realistically anybody, even Josh Jacobs with bringing in Kenyon Drake. I do think that Jacobs is head and shoulders the better running back than Kenyon Drake. But blowing up that offensive line that wasn't really necessary. The team in general has just underachieved, and it seems like Mike Mayock just keeps throwing talent at the roster and hoping that it works out, and it's just not. It's just not working out. So you gotta at some point again you gotta make some hard decisions with John Gruden, I think, as well. I'm not sold on him being the guy there either. So,
Mr. Sullivan.
A lot, exactly what Cody said. I think Greg Roman is more instrumental in the Ravens offense than Lamar, to be totally honest. And I came across a stat. I think it was the last 27 teams or 30 teams that had more run plays than rush plays in the following season, 27 of them went the other way. The only 3 that didn't were all Greg Roman-led offenses. They all maintained that heavy run piece. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I do like the weapons that Baltimore added, not just Bateman, but I like Tylan Wallace as well. I think that'll help them there. And Josh Jacobs is the best running back in Vegas. And I think they just sooner or later they'll figure that out. But I think the point about the offensive line is spot on.
Well, the interesting thing to me, the thing I think I know about Vegas is no matter what they do, Josh Jacobs should get at least 250 touches because his first 2 years in the league, he's been right around that. You know, he had 240 something, 242 or 3 his rookie year, and then like 270 something last year. Over 1,000 yards, 7+ touchdowns. I think he had like 12 last year. Josh Jacobs is still getting his action and still getting his touches. And even in 15 games, I think he missed a game last year, So it's like the thing I think I know is that even with all the crazy chaos going on there in Vegas, Josh Jacobs should still be insulated enough that Kenyon Drake isn't going to take enough to really eat into that expectation of 1,000 yards and, 7+ touchdowns. I mean, he's probably a solid RB2. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think minimum he's an RB2. And like I said with Jonathan Taylor, personally, I'm not taking any touches away from Jonathan Jacobs, or I'm not taking any touches away from Jacobs and giving them to Kenyon Drake. I'm just not. But we'll see what happens with that team. I just don't trust the coaching staff in Vegas. I just have a hard time trusting them with my kind of fantasy roster.
Right. And over on Facebook, they want to know Calvin with Julio gone and Pitts in, a push. So what do you guys make of that situation? I know that we've talked a little bit here that in the past few weeks that we kind of see Pitts as the number 2 target, or at least Sullivan does. I'm not entirely sure because Russell Gage has been good when given the opportunity, and he has a rapport with Matt Ryan where Pitts is a rookie. But Cody, what's your take on that Atlanta wide receiver situation and or tight end situation?
I'm super happy you brought that up. I'm actually very much in the same camp as Sully. Actually, I think that there's a position evolution kind of happening right now in the NFL with this move tight end, former wide receivers, big body guys, small school wide receivers that transition to tight end in the NFL. You see with Jacob Harris, even Dan Arnold a little bit last year, Kyle Pitts, Harrison Bryant with the Browns. There's all these guys coming in where, and realistically, I think there's a right way to do it. And I think with Hayden Hurst there in Atlanta and Austin Hooper in Cleveland, I think that's how you roll that new position, kind of new evolving position out, where you have a hand in the dirt, traditional type tight end, and then that move guy that's an absolute mismatch nightmare. And you can line those guys up side by side, do a lot of, rollouts, play action, bootlegs. Realistic. I think like Kyle Shannon would be the perfect, model for that, but he's got George Kittle who can do everything. So he doesn't need that secondary guy. But I think that's something that I'm keeping an eye on personally this year and moving forward is that new, I think there's a new kind of position evolving in the NFL.
Mr. Sullivan, I know that you're just oozing to get excited about that statement, but the floor is yours on Mr. Pitts and that whole Atlanta system.
Well, I do agree, obviously, and I do think Kyle Pitts is probably the second largest receiver of targets for Atlanta this season, but I don't think it's very much over Russell Gage. I think they complement each other quite well, and I think Hayden Hurst isn't exactly going away either. That Arthur Smith loves the 2 tight end sets, and I think he'll try to implement that as much as possible. He likes to run the football. I don't think he has the running game that he needs in order to run his Tennessee offense. There is no Derrick Henry in this backfield. Mike Davis is Mike Davis. So, I think the question really was, is Calvin Ridley a push, or does his value increase? It's hard to go up from where he was last year, but at the same time, I think the proof is in his quarterback's hands, really. And I think if Matt Ryan can continue to somewhat be effective then he's okay. But if you look at Matt Ryan's statistics historically without Julio Jones on the field, it's quite frightening and it's rather horrific. So we'll see what happens. Ridley did pretty good. He's played 8 games without Julio in his career, and his worst week was wide receiver 17. So I think he has the ability to be the number 1 wide receiver. I do think Kyle Pitts is going to be moving all over the place and get a ton of targets. But Russell Gage, to your point, Brad, is good, and he'll be involved 100%. That team still has to throw the football. Their defense still stinks. So we'll see what happens.
I don't think they have a choice. That's kind of where they're at.
Right.
Quadre Olison could be that, mold of Derrick Henry, but he's not even close. So, realistically, they just don't have a choice. You kind of have to stay the course with how that team was built before Arthur Smith came in. So yeah. I think you have to stay the course. And Matt Ryan has shown that he can gunsling. He can throw the ball. So you might as well just keep moving with that and continue to build it out as you see fit type of a thing and make the changes where you can. You can't just wholesale make changes in 1 year because of a coaching change. I'm personally not even close to as high on Calvin Ridley as everyone else is. I think, at his ADP, that's fairly risky considering everything that you just said. Yeah, they're going to have to air it out, but yeah, Hayden Hurst isn't going away. Pitts, Gage, they do actually have a fair amount of weapons. So with Calvin Ridley's ADP, I'm actually personally fading him there, if I'm being honest. I know I'm going to catch some heat for that one, but
I like it. You got to bring the heat, man. That's how it works.
Got it.
Next question up on the books is Michael Thomas. So who do we like him with more, Winston or Taysom? Sullivan, I'll give it to you first.
I don't think it matters. I think what's very interesting is I kind of want to see Winston because I want to see if Michael Thomas is more than just a slot receiver. I think he had to be a slot receiver. Drew Brees couldn't throw the football more than 30 yards for the last 3 seasons. So if it's Jameis Winston, can Michael Thomas expand the route tree and become a really true outstanding wide receiver, or does he continue to feed off of the slot? And as a fantasy manager, I don't really care where he catches the football on the field as long as he does. Hopefully it's in the end zone. But at the end of the day, I think Winston probably gives him the most upside, but he was just fine with Taysom Hill last year, and he will be this year as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he'll be just fine regardless. And again, his ADP is too low for a guy that broke the record for catches in the NFL. I think the big difference will be in the kind of what routes he's running in the route tree. I think on deep balls, it's obviously going to be a little bit more leaning towards Winston, but in the intermediate routes, slants, I know there's been some talk that Jameis can't throw the slant to Michael Thomas. I'm not too concerned about that. I think in the intermediate routes, it's basically a wash between the two. But then they're going to do different things. Winston can throw the ball a little further downfield, and Taysom's going to run the ball a little more. So, in all honesty, I think both quarterbacks get on the field. I really, really do, especially on the goal line. Like, there's going to be a ton of goal line packages for Taysom Hill. So I'm probably avoiding both those quarterbacks unless I have like 3 streamers that I'm just rolling, matchup based type of thing.
And that's the interesting, and it's a question I brought up on one of our shows some time back is, I wonder if the NFL is going to look at the Saints as kind of a blueprint for we could roll out multiple quarterbacks. And if they do so, fantasy managers everywhere, their heads will explode because it's a crazy idea. But, the Saints are always on the front end of trying new things and doing new things like that. And it would be interesting to me to see if this actually works, if they keep rolling this strategy of you've got a guy like Taysom who's kind of a gadgety quarterback who can do a little bit. I mean, he was averaging, 250 yards passing in his time, where you bring Winston in for kind of the big play stuff. And it would be terrifying to think about, but it's interesting to see the Saints try some of these things. And with all of this being said, in our mock here, Michael Thomas was wide receiver 13 off the board. So he's, the folks here, at least in this situation, he's kind of a wide receiver too. I love that value. If Michael Thomas is my wide receiver too, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear, you hear stuff like that coming up, it's going to change the NFL thing. There's no way. Realistically, there's a finite amount of quarterbacks that you can absolutely rely on in the NFL. And you do not move on from those guys. That's absolutely why Aaron Rodgers is still going to be a Packer. It's the stupidest thing you can do as a franchise. So Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, before all that stuff came out, Aaron Rodgers, you just do not move on from that guy. And with the quarterback, the way I see it is the quarterback position is kind of changing where there's a ton more of those running type guys that can create from themselves, throw on the run. And it's becoming more and more, prominent. Even Joe Burrow coming in, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, all these guys, right? So I think that is the change that's coming and basically happening right now. So I don't think you could, unless someone can throw the ball like Taysom has the ability to, that's hard to find realistically.
Yep, absolutely. And I think I agree with our friends on Facebook. We saw a lot of quarterbacks go in just 4 rounds of a 1 QB. How do you feel about these guys? I mean, because we saw a rookie go in there. We saw, what appears to be the heir apparent to the GOAT and Trevor Lawrence go in the top 4 rounds. And obviously some of the quarterbacks we talked about, as well as Dak coming back from injury, Justin Herbert, a second-year guy who looked good, but, it was just a 1-year sample size. And then Russell Wilson, who obviously you never know what's going to happen with him in Seattle because they're on again, off again. Sully, how do you feel about all these quarterbacks? Are they worthy of being, top 5 round type quarterbacks in a dynasty type setting or in redraft?
No. I think myself, if this draft kept going, I would like it a lot because there's so many quarterbacks still available for me to take later on. Like Mahomes is Mahomes, but that's early for me. I think I have him at about 24 in my rankings, and then it drops from there. I was look at it. I have Kyler 53rd overall, and he's my quarterback too. So I just don't see the need. Quarterback, in my opinion, has never been deeper in the league than it is today. I'd be happy with Baker Mayfield. I'd be thrilled with Ryan Tannehill. I would be happy with so many different quarterbacks. And that includes a whole bunch of rookies too. I think Trey Lance plays sooner rather than later. I think Justin Fields does as well. And I think he contributes, to Cody's point earlier, this kind of wave of the mobile quarterback that can pick up yards with their legs. Jalen Hurts is another one. So there's just so many quarterbacks out there right now that I think you can wait. 7th, 8th round is the first I'm going to start looking at them. Normally what I'll do is I'll have sort of about a top 6 that I have in mind, which are pretty much, other than Lawrence, the quarterbacks that went are my top quarterbacks. I'd typically start looking to maybe take that quarterback when, that Justin Herbert or Russell Wilson came off the board, but I would expect that to be round 6, 7 instead of rounds 3 and 4.
Yeah, realistically, I don't usually take quarterbacks early either at all. I was just kind of playing around with it, but I would, especially in 12-team leagues, I'm even in 16-team leagues, and I would rather, if it's a 1 quarterback league, I would rather stream 3 guys and just play my matchups throughout the season and just build on depth throughout, with obviously at running back and wide receiver, hopefully tight ends if you can get one of the good ones. If you don't get one of the top tight ends, then I'm just doing the same thing as quarterback. I'm streaming 3 guys, and then I just build out my depth at wide receiver, running back, flex, all that. So,
agree.
Oh, and over on Facebook, I think they've nailed it. If you wait, a guy like Ryan Tannehill is always undervalued, or I should say underdrafted, undervalued, either or. I mean, that guy could wind up being a really high-end QB1 because look what he's been doing. Since he's gotten to Tennessee, he's really found his happy place. And, in 1 QB formats, I don't blame a guy for waiting that long because even look at what's still here that you could sit and wait on. Stafford in LA, depending on how you feel about Stafford in LA, Joe Burrow in Cincy. You've got Deshaun Watson is a guy that, in all of our fishbowl drafts, because all of our Scott Fish leagues are going, he's the one that everybody just is like, well, what do you do with him? And, Deshaun is a guy who, when he's on the field, he's elite, and Ryan Tannehill, when he's on the field, he is a startable, QB1 in fantasy, in most fantasy circles. Now, obviously, the rushing side of things kind of devalues him a little bit because you don't see as much with him, but
he gets touchdowns.
He does. He gets you touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns. So that's a big thing. I think he can absolutely be a top 5 quarterback, and like you said, he's shown it recently. I'll admit I was actually a little bit low on him last year because it might have been a flash in the pan. I'm not sure. I'm just the offensive line. I was a little concerned last year, but with what I saw last year, I'm fully on board with Ryan Tannehill. I don't think there's any more room for doubt there. And you add in a weapon like Julio Jones, and that's absolutely a guy that I am buying for sure.
Yeah, and I posted in the chats. If you want to see the rankings that Sully keeps talking about, they're in the chats. You can click on there, go over to RotoHeat.com, and you can see all the rankings and see what Mr. Sullivan keeps referencing his one QB. And we have rankings for everything. I mean, we've got Devy, we've got Superflex, we got IDP, we got IDP rookie, we got Devy, Superflex. I mean, we got rankings for everything. So those are kept up to date on the monthly. So just an FYI to all you folks out there. Now, we didn't see a lot of the 2021 rookie class in here. I see Cody took Javonte Williams. Obviously we got Jamar Chase in there. Do you feel like that makes sense because the 2021 class doesn't really have a lot of kind of cornerstone pieces of a fantasy roster? Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I just don't think it's as deep as years gone by. And, we kind of tore this class apart and broke it down and put it back together. And what I originally thought was a pretty deep class, all of a sudden I started doing my rookie drafts and I got to the back end of the first round in one QB or early second in Superflex and was like, maybe this isn't as deep as I thought it was. And the draft, we've talked about a ton of times, is there were some interesting landing spots and guys slid. So, I think there's three guys in this draft that people are the most comfortable with, and that's Harris and Chase and Pitts. I do love Javonte Williams. I think that he's going to be the man in Denver sooner rather than later, probably as early as week 4. So I think that's a great pick. Where that pick came off the board, where that can materialize in terms of a dynasty startup. Travis Etienne is a mystery, and then it just kind of goes from there, right? Like there's a bunch of wide receivers I kind of like, but no one I don't think I would put into this much or put that much draft capital on at this point in this format.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a few like one-dimensional. I'm not going to call them completely one-dimensional, but there's a few guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Kenny Gainwell that are going to have a role and they're going to do one thing very well. So there's a lot of those guys like the depth builders for real life football. They have more real life value than they do fantasy. They may have a little more dynasty value, but in redrafts. Yeah, you're right. It's just those three guys and Etienne. You don't want to, like you said, sink a ton of draft capital in there. I will say I'm the ultimate Javonte Williams truther. So I think that there's a very good chance he starts the season as the RB1 in Denver. And then moving forward, I'm already having Melvin Gordon off that team. So, he could be the RB1 this year. And then moving forward, I think the sky is kind of the limit for him. Moving forward,
I think Gordon could get cut.
Cut or traded. I mean, look at the teams that need running back help.
You got the former Vikings assistant general manager running the show there now, who brought Mike Boone in there with him. So, if you want to read the tea leaves, I think
trade up to get above Miami to get Javonte Williams.
Totally. And I think Gordon could get released. I don't know who he gets traded to, but he could. But who trades for him?
Well, I mean, look at the teams that need running back help. So Miami, like you said, Miami could use running back help, but I'm not a Gaskin guy. Atlanta could use some running back help because we don't know if Mike Davis is a guy that can withstand a long-term, a full 17, 18-game slate, or Javian Hawkins or Quadra and whoever is the next guy up behind him. Those are the two teams that come to mind first and foremost. A team like New England always has 78 running backs, so it wouldn't surprise me if they go get another running back, and that just make it even more crazy. Those are the two teams off the top of my head that I'm like, they both need running back help because they don't have a guy that is truly the RB1 by himself. I think Gaskin, the thing people don't think about with Gaskin is how much tread on those tires coming out of Washington. I mean, they ran that kid into the ground in Washington. And you could see it on the field in Miami as a rookie. Like you could tell that the dude was a little bit tired, and and he doesn't look bad, but he could use somebody to help him. And they have other backs there, but just nobody that I'm like super excited. And I'm not excited about Gordon. Gordon, I think, is burnt toast anyway. So I don't see anybody really targeting him, but he'll get picked up because he's playable for sure for an NFL team. For fantasy purposes, I'm not even remotely interested.
I think the 17 game schedule makes it really interesting too, right? Like I think we're going to see more running back twos, or not RB2s fantasy, but running back twos on teams get those 8 to 10 touches that they might normally not have gotten, like Henderson in Los Angeles and Gus Edwards and guys like that. I think they have value. So Gordon probably still has value, but he's not, to your point, at all what he once was. And I don't know what he makes and what his contract looks like. I don't know if there's any financial benefits to Denver letting him go. If there isn't, they probably don't. But I agree. Williams is absolutely the back to own there.
Oh, go ahead, Cody.
Sorry, I think the workhorse running back might be dying before our eyes. To be honest with you, like I just said, with all those guys taken in this year's draft that are kind of one-dimensional guys, you're going to have that third down back more so. It's it's going to get more and more rare that you're going to see those guys. And look at Le'Veon Bell, what he commanded in a trade. It just doesn't usually happen where teams are trading for an aging veteran running back. Pretty much not going to happen at all. And as long as Todd Gurley's kicking around out there, I don't see anyone wanting to sink any sort of draft capital into trading for Gordon.
Does Le'Veon Bell get a job?
Probably in season when injuries start happening.
Yeah, with what he said about Andy Reid, I don't think that was a good move at all. Considering Andy Reid is like one of the most likable guys in the NFL, to come out and say something like that, I don't think that's a very good look for him. Trying to get a job, trying to get signed somewhere.
I agree.
And so I pulled up. I went over Spot Track. Melvin Gordon it's a tough one. So his base salary is $4.5 million, $2 million signing bonus, $2.4 million roster bonus. Cap hit is 8.9. Dead cap is 6.5. Denver is the number 3 cap team in the league right now. I mean, they have about $30 million, so they could do something if they want to change his situation on the team. But that's a lot of money they have invested in him, so he might be on the roster for 2021, which whatever. Javonte Williams still is the more talented running back, but I think the thing that a lot of people are overlooking is his running mate at North Carolina went to a spot where he should have no problem becoming RB1
100%.
early. Michael Carter is, I mean, when you watch them on film, and we did a lot of film analysis for Rookie Draft Guide, Carter is really, really talented. Now, he doesn't have the size that Javonte has, which kind of is what gives Javonte the one up on him in my mind, but he's just as dynamic, can catch out of the backfield, do all the things. Robert Saleh, is going to want to run the ball to set up the pass with his rookie quarterback. Like Michael Carter, to me, if he, in a draft like this, if he's not coming off, in round 6, kind of late 5, 6, 7, I would be jumping all over that action. Cody, what do you think about Carter as well? I know how much you like Javonte, but what do you think about Carter?
He's a guy that I absolutely love. I was pretty sad when the Bengals weren't able to draft him. I'm a Bengals fan, so I was very, before the draft, I was very much keying in on Michael Carter, hoping, especially when they cut Gio Bernard. I thought that it was kind of written in the stars, so I was really hoping he would be a Bengal. But I honestly think that he's just a guy that can go in there and force their hand and not allow them to take him off the field. Like I genuinely think that he has that kind of mindset, and he has the ability to back it up with the offensive line that's not in a terrible spot at all. He can catch the ball. Like he has everything to be a 3-down back. I'm not sure if that ends up that way, especially with Kevin Coleman there. But I absolutely love Michael Carter, and I think that he's those are the 2 guys that I'm after, because Najee Harris is the 101 in any kind of rookie draft, and then ETN, there's a few question marks. At their ADPs, I'm all over Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, absolutely.
All right, so next question from over on Facebook. Who is the Nyheim Hines of 2021 other than Nyheim Hines? Mr. Sullivan, I'll give it to you first. Is there a guy that
be first?
Is okay, so
I'll take it off your hands.
All right, go ahead, Cody. So if you've got a guy, who is it?
This is something that I actually
Canadians do. They help each other out.
Sorry?
So that's what Canadians do. They help each other
there
out.
You go. Yeah, I'll jump in here. So I tweeted this out, and I realistically, I think that this is the only way to attack this backfield is to look at Kenny Gainwell in Philly. Obviously, it's easy for me to say that with Nick Sirianni, but it makes tons of sense. I'm just not a believer in Miles Sanders at his ADP at all. I think you just wait till the end of the draft, pick up Kenny Gainwell, especially in a PPR league. I think that he's absolutely the guy to look at. And again, the parallels are obviously there. Throughout, from what I can recall off the top of my head, history-wise, Philly's not running a workhorse running back. It's just never really happened. I thought they'd get there with Ryan Matthews back in the day, Jordan Howard maybe. Like, it just never has happened. So I'm looking at Kenny Gainwell as that guy.
There we go. Mr. Sullivan, who's your Naheem Hines of 2021?
It's a tough one, and that's a great answer. I think that's a really good one. I'll go with Kenyon Drake just for fun. I think he could catch a ton of passes this year in that Raiders offense. I think they could line him up in the slot a lot. I think he rushed for 11 touchdowns last season in Arizona, so the man can get it in the short yardage areas. So I'll give him a shot at it.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with my team, my Lions. I'm going Jamal Williams. Because I think they're going to have to run the ball a lot because TJ Hawkinson's their wide receiver one. I mean, he's the most talented wide receiver on the team. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Rashad Perriman and Terrell Williams, I don't see them as guys that are really going to command much attention. And I don't know how well the rapport with Jared Goff's going to be based on the way Goff plays. So I think they're going to have to run the set up the pass, and there's going to be a lot of check down action going on. So Jamal Williams is the guy that I'm excited about. DeAndre Swift too. I mean, but at the price point, I think Jamal Williams is a Naheem Hines type role player in the Detroit backfield.
It's a good call.
Next question though is does Todd Gurley get signed? So speaking of Lions, obviously we know he visited Detroit. Is Todd Gurley in the Lev Bell category where somebody waits till training camp injuries pile up to go get him? Cody?
I mean, probably like you said, in training camp, there will likely be a big injury to a big time player. And then, you're going to bring him in for depth. He's going to be pretty inexpensive, I believe. So yeah, you might as well get a guy that, again, what he can do. You're worried about the knees, but he is still very young. I think he definitely does get a job, and probably Lev Bell, to be honest, as well. We'll see what happens with injuries. Look at last year, how many injuries creeped up. Obviously it was a different kind of a year, but who knows, that could trickle into this season. I'm not sure with all the changes in the off-season workouts and stuff like that. So I think he probably will. It's just he's going to have to wait till maybe like week 3 of the preseason.
Mr. Sullivan?
I think Gurley gets signed. The team I think makes the most sense for him is the team that he played for last year, and that's not happening again this year. Atlanta probably needs him more than anybody, but obviously that's not going to happen. I see Gurley in a really mediocre volume complementary role. And another place where I think he would do an exceptionally well and help the team out a lot is with the Chargers. You have Austin Eckler as your lead back, but it's a man who's never scored more than 3 rushing touchdowns in his career. The running game is not exactly his forte. So I think that there's not much there behind him. Like, I don't have much for Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly or Lair Roundtree. I just don't see that. So I see Gurley being a guy who could help there. I just don't know if he has the ability to take a role like he needs to take. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think realistically he's going to be, if it is somewhere like LA, that's a goal line carry type of guy. And is he that guy? I mean,
can he suck it up and realize that that's all he is now? I don't know.
Well, and that would be a good team. I mean, with what LA's done to the offensive line in the offseason, it's a much improved line. So I think that's a smart move for a guy. For either one of those types of backs, like, hey, listen, Eckler's our guy that can do it all, be the receiver out of the backfield, get some chunk yardage between the tackles and between the 20s. You're going to come in and be kind of the banger, help lead the group in the meetings and see, and develop these young guys. I think it's a smart move for any of those veteran running backs that are looking for a job to go to LA. I mean, because that offense is up and coming. The defense has some concerns, but there's some pieces there. And Brandon Staley's going to come over and help install, a new scheme on defense and help build that up. So I would be all for a running back going to LA because I don't believe in Eckler as a guy who's going to get you a lot of rushing touchdowns. But I do believe in him as a guy who's going to get you a lot in the receiving game, which is what makes him valuable as long as he stays healthy, obviously.
I think that would be the spot for Lev Bell realistically is LA.
Yep.
That makes tons of sense with the offensive line. And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. You know, theoretically, he can still be a 3-down back if you needed him to. But again, is he going to be a guy that, like, obviously that might have been what really pissed him off in Kansas City, was that he wasn't getting those touches that he thought he was going to get in going there. So is he going to do that? I don't know. But that, I mean, on paper, that makes tons of sense to go to LA.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it pissed Bell off when he realized he was the 4th best running back on his own team.
Yeah. Fall from grace is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and with the amount of running backs that get pumped in the league every year, I mean, these guys, they really have to realize if you want to keep playing and keep getting paid and keep getting on the field, you have to know your lane and stay in it. You know, listen, if you're not the guy anymore, be okay being a mentor, being a guy who's going to get, you know, 4 to 8 touches a game or something like that. You know, what are you trying to get out of it? Because there's not a lot of these guys are going to make it to the Hall of Fame with the rate the running backs' careers are right now. So just help develop, grow, keep yourself going. I mean, look at AP. AP is the perfect example of a guy who, listen, realized he wasn't going to be able to do, you know, 250 to 300 touches anymore, but he can still play some quality touches.
Yeah.
He still has a job too.
He still has a job too.
Yeah, I think you got to understand that your body's an absolute machine and you need to treat it as such. And your health is 100% means everything in the NFL at the running back position. So you really cannot take that lightly whatsoever. I'm some dude sitting in my office here talking about that like I know anything about it, but you know what I mean? That's just what I see. So
right, absolutely. So that's it, people. It was fun. It was an hour. We did, yeah. It always goes by fast. Mock drafts are always a blast. We went through 4 rounds just to kind of give you something to think about as you're starting, whether it's redraft season or dynasty startups, because you know that's that time of year. Sometimes people like to get back into that. Hopefully, this helped you. Hopefully, this gave you some ideas or some things to think about. But if you have questions, we've got a Discord community that's growing on the daily, full of people that are here to help you. We've got Facebook community that is thriving where you can get your questions answered. You can DM us on Twitter. You can find us anywhere. You can jump in these videos and ask your questions like you saw, and we'll take care of you live. The RotoHeat.com team is here to help you. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Cody, it was an absolute pleasure having you on, my man. The floor is yours. Tell everybody where to find you and what you got going on, my friend.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys, RotoHeat. That's awesome what you guys are doing. You know, realistically, I can do nothing for you guys. You guys can help me. Thanks a ton for having me on. I'm a small channel looking to grow. So, yeah, check out my YouTube channel, Off The Schneid. You can obviously search it. I got all kinds of mostly real-life content right now, blowing through all 32 NFL teams right now, their record prediction, rosters, all that kind of stuff. And then on Twitter at _the Schneid. Someone took Off The Schneid on me and hasn't been active in like 4 years, so I want that tag, but it is what it is. So yeah, and yeah, like you guys said, I mean, DMs are always open for anyone. So if you're a new content creator looking for some tips or anything, maybe I can help you out. Any fantasy advice, I'm more than happy to answer any questions on Twitter in the DMs. So, Mr.
Sullivan, any closing words for our dearly loved friends here on the stream?
No, just thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Cody, for being here, and thanks for being fun and knowledgeable. Like, it was a great show, and you had a ton of value to add, just like your channel does. So I do recommend that people go and check it out, like and subscribe over there. You'll be a better fantasy manager for it. And that's all I got, man. I'm just doing my thing. I'm just writing stuff and showing up on Tuesday nights. My job's easy.
And we thank you guys. As always, you guys are the reason that we're here. We're here to help. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We've been dropping our 2021 player outlooks, so make sure you like and subscribe. We started pumping them out this week, and we're going to be pumping them out up until the season starts and probably even into the season. Patreon.com/RotoHeat. You can get over there. We're creating a schedule of content specifically for our wonderful patrons that are joining us over there. And then over on RotoHeat.com, Sully's been pumping out 50 articles in 50 days about all sorts of amazing information. We love you guys. We will talk to you next week. We got Monday live stream for IDP only, and then Tuesday, Sully and I will be back with another special guest. I don't remember
Me neither.
I got to check the show sheet. Whoever it is going to be amazing because we've got amazing people that come on every week. So we love you guys. We will talk to you again next week.
I can't remember. Sorry.
And that may be the most terrifying sounds you'll ever hear.
Whoops.
Ooh,
See you, bye.
I could do worse than that.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it. You want to.